Hello, it's Marissa again, here to talk about traumatic brain injuries as part of the neurocognitive disorders. Traumatic brain injuries are more commonly referred to as TBIs, and the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria is listed here, with A being the criteria are met for major or mild neurocognitive disorders. Major neurocognitive disorder is listed in the DSM-5 as there being evidence of significant cognitive decline from previous levels of performance in one or more cognitive areas such as attention span, executive function, learning and memory, and social cognition, based on substantial impairment in cognitive performance of these previously stated areas. And another piece to that diagnostic criteria is that it's not related to like delirium, and that there are the deficits in those areas interfere with being able to independently function in everyday activities. For mild neurocognitive disorders, there's an evidence of modest cognitive decline from previous levels of performance in those same categories, but just less intense. And also just that the cognitive deficits also aren't as caused by delirium and can't be explained by another mental disorder like major depressive disorder or schizophrenia. Criteria B in the DSM-5 for TBIs is that there is evidence of a traumatic brain injury, which is explained as an impact to the head or other mechanisms of rapid movement or displacement of the brain within the skull within one or more of the following: loss of consciousness, post-traumatic amnesia or memory loss, disorientation and confusion, and neurological signs like neuroimaging demonstrating injury, a new onset of seizures, a marked worsening of a pre-existing seizure disorder, visual field cuts, anosmia, or hemiparesis. And criteria C states the neurocognitive disorder presents immediately after the occurrence of the traumatic brain injury or immediately after recovery of consciousness and persists past the acute post-injury period. I also have a few facts about traumatic brain injuries from the CDC website. That's the Center for Disease Control. And they explain a traumatic brain injury as an injury that affects how the brain works, and that it can be caused by a few different things. Most common being a bump, blow, or jolt to the head, or a penetrating injury, which they give an example as being from a gunshot to the head. And there are three main types of traumatic brain injuries. The first being mild, or more commonly known as a concussion. The second being moderate, and finally severe. Also, according to the CDC, in the year 2020, There were over 64,000 TBI-related deaths in the United States. And they also state that TBIs affect the lives of people of all ages. Anyone can experience a TBI, but there are groups of people that are at a greater risk of dying or experiencing long-term health problems on top of TBI as a result of that injury. Some examples of those populations that are more likely to be affected are racial and ethnic minorities, military service members and veterans, people who experience homelessness, people who are in correctional and detention facilities, survivors of intimate partner violence, and people living in rural areas. I also found on the CDC's website some information related to TBIs in older adults, and found it interesting that TBIs are often missed or misdiagnosed in older adults because symptoms of TBIs can overlap with other medical conditions that are common among older adults, such as dementia. Which just makes it all the more important for healthcare providers to check for these signs and symptoms, like recent falls or a fall-related injury, or having been in a car crash. And also noting what medications they're taking, because oftentimes older adults are on blood thinners or anticoagulants, which can make an injury to the brain all the more dangerous if there's the inability to stop the bleeding within their brain from the injury. And I just thought that was interesting information that I needed to share. I hope you learned something from this and enjoy the rest of the presentation. Thank you.